One. Hello. Hello, I think this is going to kill my Mac. Because today we're joined by, look, there's loads of us. Turns out that we can do 6 on Ecamm, and if we do 5, it looks like this. Ecamm is the Mac software that I use to make this all happen. And right, I've been challenged to get the finger pointing right. So here's goes, right? Over here, first one right, yeah, pretty happy with that, is Paul Lacey. Say hi, Paul.
Hello, how you doing? I'm Paul here from Dickerbird Studio, and also a brand ambassador for RunCloud. At Dickerbird Studio, we make WordPress websites and we do UX, and we're also involved in doing the big new craze everyone's talking about. You know what that is? Microsites, these tiny little 10-pixel websites. So we're getting in early on that to try and make some money. That's what a microsite is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, mate.
You can get a lot in.
We haven't got any customers yet, but we're trying to sort of optimize design for super tiny microsites.
Do you remember the $1 million homepage all those years ago?
Yes.
Where every pixel got sold for $1, and the guy basically sold them all, and then very quickly somebody came out with the $1 billion website, which, needless to say, was slightly less successful. Right, let me get this right. I'm going to get it right. I'm so going to get it right. Yes, there he is. It's Mike Killen. Hi, Mike. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm the founder of Sell Your Service. We're a sales training organization that helps funnel builders, increase their prices, define a niche, that kind of stuff. It's good. Thank you for being here. I feel a little bit kind of going through the show notes, like when you have someone on a panel show and you're like, the hell are they doing there? They don't know anything about the topic. I'll jump in. This is awesome.
I feel like that every week, Mike. Don't feel too bad. And over here we have Ronald. Now let me get this right. Yes, come on, it's Ronald. Ronald, it occurred to me last time you were on that I don't think I tried to tackle your surname, because as I was looking at it today, I thought, I'm not entirely sure how to say your surname.
Give it a go.
Okay. Gijsel.
Right. Very good try. It's a Dutch name, and it's a soft G, and the I and a J is a Y sound. So it's Gijsel.
Gijsel.
Or if you're from the north of the country, then it's Gijsel.
Gijsel.
But it is from below the rivers, it's Gijsel. Anyway, so Ronald Gijsel. I'm a micro agency freelancer, as well as with a lot of clients, and I'm also a brand ambassador for Yes, which do a lot of WooCommerce plugins.
Yeah.
So, well, hopefully I'll have a bit of input today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Very much appreciated. And last but by no means least, now I'm not going to manage to do this one because this is a point, because he's far away from me on the screen, but there is Andre Gagnon. Hello, Andre.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
So I'm Andre. I'm the creator of Project Huddle, which is a communication tool for designers, developers, and their clients. It's kind of like digital sticky notes on your designs and websites. It's a way for people to ditch email and get better feedback on their projects.
Well, thank you so much, all of you, for coming on. Could I just say, we tried this last week and it was very successful. It was really worth doing. I redirected everybody. If you're watching this, but you would like to contribute to make comments, essentially anybody that comments in our Facebook group, Facebook will not allow those comments to sort of be leached out to third-party services. They keep them inside. If it's on a page, that's different. So if you go to wpbuilds.com/live, you should see a little widget to put some comments in, or you can click the big red bar, which says open up live chat. And that was really good last week. It was really successful. Matt Davis in particular was very good at making some comments. So let's hope he comes back this week. I think he's already on the call. But yeah, so wpbuilds.com/live, and you can comment there. And then I can put them on the actual screen, which was a bit of fun. So just before we begin, I'll tell you what this is all about. Here we are. This is us. We are WP Builds. It's a WordPress kind of related podcast. Each and every week we put together a podcast. This week we did this one about Spin Up WP with Brad Tuzenard. But that's not why we're here, because if you go to this archive section and click the news archive button just there, you'll get to a whole list of news posts, and we're always on the top left one. So I'm going to open that up. So if you want to follow along and see what it is we're talking about, we are dealing with this one, which is number 83. Now what I do is the weekend before we actually do this, I put this out to the guests and say, here's all the stuff that we're talking about, and I offer them the ability to sort of like say, actually, I know a little bit about that, or I would like to put myself up to talk about that. And each week, some people say, yep, I'll take that article, or I'd like to remain more silent than talky. And this week we're going to have Andre kicking us off, because he's nominated himself to do the first one, which is all about WordPress 5.3 Beta 2. So shall I just hand it straight over to you, Andre? What did you find of interest in there?
We could do that. I finally got around to testing the beta, and there's some really exciting things in there that I didn't realize at first. I think the one I'm most excited about is the group block.
Yep.
It's kind of finally a way in Gutenberg to make containers or sections in your content, which was sort of impossible without like third-party block libraries or other methods before. So I think that's kind of huge. You can let your clients do like predefined sections and stuff. So in addition, they have the I think it's called the block style variations API, which you can do now in PHP. So you could make sort of pre-styled sections that your clients can choose from. You can even add them to like reusable blocks, so they can reuse them in different parts of the site. I think it's just super neat and kind of a one that kind of slipped under my radar. I thought I'd worth mentioning.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's great. Anybody else got anything they wanted to add about that? Because these kind of pre-release beta things sometimes go by, and we don't really talk about them too much because it's just a bit technical and a little bit uninteresting, and some are more interesting than others. But I don't know if anybody's got anything they want to add on that score. If not, I'll just crack on because Andre's got the next one as well. In which case, Andre, over to you again.
Yeah.
This is preparing WordPress, themes for WordPress 5.3. What did you get out of this? This was on WP Tavern.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things about this new changes, WordPress is introducing some breaking changes.
Yeah.
Just in regards to moving classes around and adding wrapper containers, and they're also, I think, using CSS classes instead of inline styles for like left, center, and right alignment.
Yep.
So anybody that's done a Gutenberg theme either needs to install like a previous version of Gutenberg and update, or will need to make those changes before you update, or layouts will get broken, which I think is, WordPress has always been about backwards compatibility, and this is kind of a interesting update in that it's sort of breaking a lot of things that are front-facing.
Yeah, I'm just looking on the WP Tavern article, and it says that there's these three possible blocks which are going to cause breakages to themes. It's the group block, you can probably see on my screen, table, and gallery. And Justin Tadlock, who wrote this article, I believe, Justin Tadlock was behind this. He thinks it's the gallery block which is going to cause the most problems. I don't know of those three which is the most likely to be deployed, but clearly if you are the user of a theme and you're in touch with the developer and what have you, it might be a good idea to point them in the direction of this. Presumably they're taking note of it anyway, but I know there's quite a few theme developers who listen to this. They probably know, but there you go. You've got to change those, and you've got some new block classes that have been added as well. So all in all, there's quite a lot coming down the road. I think we've got just over a month. What have we got? Yeah, here was the date. 12th of November will be the date of WordPress 5.3 coming around. But yeah, okay, there we go. That's good. The other one that was mentioned this week, I mentioned this one, which is the new date time component. To be honest with you, I'm not really going to go into this because it's a bit technical. But again, if you're in any way, shape or form involved in producing plugins or themes or anything like that, you might want to take a look at that, because you've got some new ways of interacting with date times. It says that it was the way that WordPress handles dates and times goes back to PHP 4, which almost seems like the Iron Age in terms of technology, and it was retrofitted, so it's getting a bit of a makeover with PHP 5, and of course now we're on to PHP 7.3, 7.4 very soon. So they've updated things, and it gets into the weeds of it. I'm not going to bother, but that's basically the article. So if you've got anything to say about that, I am, however, going to add this into the broadcast, which is quite nice, because Lee Jackson took my advice by the looks of it and has added himself over at wpbuilds.com /live, because look, we can see Lee's written.
Hey, Lee.
Hey guys, how you doing? You're right there, Lee. Thanks for pasting that comment in. That's great, lovely stuff. Next one from me is all about WordCamp. I was going to be going to this. I actually am not sure anymore whether that's going to happen for me this year. It may be that maybe next year will be the year for me. But the tickets are on sale. If you want to go to WordCamp US, you can get your tickets. They're as cheap as chips, these things, considering what you get. I think it's $50. Let me just see. Yeah, $50 a ticket.
Nathan.
Hello?
I think you should go.
I know. I really do think I should go. I appreciate that. I would love to. Are you going?
Have you seen the venue? I am, yeah. Have you seen the venue for the what's it called? The words, the after party. Or
it's like a children's soft play area for adults, isn't it?
It is.
It's mental. Yeah, I really.
With a big yellow bus on the top hanging off the cliff, and there are slides and all sorts of weird, wonderful things.
Yeah.
It's quite strange, but yeah.
Yeah, I really, really would like to go. I just don't know if it's going to work out for me this year. But there you go, $50 a ticket. I mean, let's be honest, that won't even cover the food that you're being given. And yet, there you go, 40 plus speakers, loads and loads going on. But the tickets are now available. And here's the URL. Let me put it on the screen. It's 2019.us.wordcamp.org/tickets. It's in St. Louis. I always want to say St. Louis, but I'm pretty sure you pronounce it St. Louis. And yeah, there you go. So that's good. Oh, look at this! Loads of nice comments coming in now. Let's add a few of these into the broadcast, just because we can. Lee Jackson saying, "So many handsome faces." Lee, go and get those glasses checked out. Chris is saying he's here too. That's nice. Jeffrey, nice to see you. Nathan Leo says, make a sneak appearance. Oh, don't know. Could you have a better beer together? Anyway, blah. I'm going to ignore those comments for now and move on because we need to talk about WordPress. And the next one, what have we got? Who's taking this next one? It's going to be, it's not me.
Can I quickly add WordCamp Dublin into the WordCamp?
Please do. Tell us about it. When is it? I know. I mean, when is it for the sake of everybody else?
So it's not this weekend, but the weekend after. I think it's the 18th of October.
Still got tickets available?
2 days. Yes.
Yeah. 2 days? 1 day?
2 days. 2 days. And I've just had a look at the schedule, and it looks interesting. A mixture of words, the usual talks, lightning talks, and also some sort of more interactive sessions as well. One of them led by Jostas.
Oh.
So I like this sort of mixture of talks where you can sort of dip in and out of different subjects.
Yeah. Do you
traditional format setup?
I saw you at WordCamp in London this year, very briefly, but I saw you were there, and obviously you're going to WordCamp in US, and it sounds to me like you're going to the one in Dublin as well. Is this something that do you get yourself there under your own steam, or does I know that you're an ambassador? Do they pay for all of that?
Yeah, so I'm as the sponsor for YIT, attending all these events, and I'll be there with a stand talking to a lot of people about WooCommerce and plugins.
Yeah.
But it's a great event just for the socials, and I do like to see a few talks, but I rarely get a chance because the hallway track is where it's at.
Yeah, that's kind of where I
do find often the most interesting, because people do come up to you, and in between the talks you have a bit of time to sit down and ask questions about what they do.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I would love to go, but the tickets are available for WordCamp in Dublin next weekend or the weekend after, and obviously WordCamp in US, which is going to be an enormous event. Okay, what else?
It's quite tricky for people in the UK to get to St. Louis.
Yeah.
I have to catch 3 flights, so I'm assuming for you the same.
What, for the one in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I presume it like London, Atlanta, is it, or something like that?
Well, I'm flying to Amsterdam, and then.
Oh, you're going with KLM?
yeah, probably.
I used to work for a travel agent, which is why I know that the route from.
I was going to say, what kind of Rain Man type skill was it that you had remembered all of these?
Well, basically, if it goes via Amsterdam, it's KLM through Schiphol, and Schiphol's hub. Each airline has its own. I'm not gonna tell you about this. It's so not interesting.
I bet you know all the short 3-letter codes as well.
I do. I had to know them all. Hey, I'll tell you an interesting fact. Whenever airlines release a plane, they basically release it 364 days to the minute before it flies. So, it's available more or less 1 year minus a day. And the seats, if there's 100 seats, they'll all have a letter attached to them. And that letter is what they cost. And the more that they sell, the different letters are available. So by the end, when there's very few seats available, it's really expensive, and right at the beginning it's really cheap. There's a couple of seats on every plane called X class, and there's like 2, and they usually sell within seconds of the plane flight being released. And so they're literally for like travel agents who are sitting there with their finger on the button ready to buy. And you can go just about anywhere in the world for less than £100 if you get one of those tickets. Now, you really came to find that out, didn't you? Here we go. Let's get back to what it's all about, which is Brian Gardner. Brian Gardner stepping down. And I think, Paul Lacey, you're going to take this one, I think.
Yep. By the way, me and Nathan Nathan and I were on a call earlier, and he told me a story about his old job in the travel agent on that call as well.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm having a real day of reminiscing about.
So if anyone's got a call
industry.
booked with Nathan later, beware.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to talk about. It was a good story, though. It was a good story.
Oh, thank you.
Brian Gardner has completed his journey as the founder of WordPress, which is the company that created Genesis, among other things. And so, first of all, well done, Brian, because he's done it. He started this company, and it was super successful. And at some point, I'm not aware of this feeling. At some point, when you're very, very successful, you must wonder, am I ever going to get out of this? Where does this end? And so he's successfully navigated that, sold his company to WP Engine, and then he stayed on the board. It says in the blog post here, he just stayed on as a board member until the end of his contract, which is nice. I guess that's kind of handing over, making sure that everything's okay and that the general direction is after the deal is done and everything's signed. And he seems quite happy with where it's going. And obviously he's got to say all the right things in the blog post, but it feels like a pretty genuine blog post. And he's just he's just kind of reflecting on some of the things that went right, some of the things that went wrong. And one of the things that he mentions in there is his biggest regret was that he didn't switch to a recurring income model sooner. Yeah. So anyone who's launching products, and he kind of mentions the lifetime deals, and he's talking about lifetime deals from a long time ago. He's talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago, themes and stuff like that. And he's saying that he wished I don't know if he actually says this, but he's kind of implying that he wished he'd not done that with WordPress and that he'd always stuck to a recurring income model. Yeah. So well done, Brian. You've done it. Good luck for the future.
Yeah.
He's a super cool guy as well. I think most people interact with him at some point or another. I've always enjoyed talking to him. He's got a really fascinating insight on how he builds products and stuff. Yeah. And a minimalist kind of thing, his whole thing at the moment, right? Minimalism. I think he's up for certainly the WP Tavern article makes the point that he's kind of still like a jobbing website designer. Now, what did it say? They're the wrong words. Anyway, he's still got his company. I forget the name. And he's still available for work, which is absolutely fascinating. I guess there comes a point though, if you've sold your business, you kind of know, don't you, that the writing is on the wall. I mean, it seems like this has happened a couple of times recently, hasn't it? There was iThemes. Corey Miller sold it to, was it Flywheel?
and he did the specified amount of time, and then he stepped away to pursue other things, and now we've got Brian Gardner doing exactly the same thing. I don't know if that's kind of like the understanding that, you know, we'll buy it so long as you come along the ride for 15 months or so, just so that we can actually work out everything that we need to work out, and then it's, you know, it's widely understood that at that point you'll probably want to leave. I don't know, but
I think it just depends on what the contract is. You know, it just says, look, if you want to stick with us, some people will be given a job, like as a director, which we've seen a couple of times with a couple of these WordPress companies, you know. But yeah, Corey as well. He gave a talk at the recurring revenue thing in Orlando that I went to, and it was really interesting. His the frame that he took from selling the business into what actually should I be focusing on now, and it's not that dissimilar to what Brian talks about. So yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah, certainly a revolutionary guy. I mean, when I came to WordPress, that was kind of like the thing that everybody was using. Yeah. I mean, literally everybody was using GeneratePress
I found out about. Sorry, go for it.
No, I mistakenly said GeneratePress. I meant to say Genesis, and then kind of it felt what the time that I came along. Then Page Builders came, and it feels to me as if that maybe was a moment where people stopped relying quite so much on those themes, and then things like GeneratePress came along with all the hooks, and people started looking elsewhere.
You know, Corey sold iThemes to Liquid Web.
Was it Liquid Web? Thank you.
Liquid,
I just googled it. I didn't know that. I was pretty sure it wasn't Flywheel. But just to say, there's a really good podcast episode out there on a really old one on the StudioPress.fm podcast, and it's a interview between Brian Gardner and Corey Miller, and it focuses a little bit on their past and some of the rivalry that they had. So they kind of started out as buddies, and at one point during the companies when they're both doing very well, some rivalry kicked in, and they kind of talk about their regret about that. It's a really good episode to listen to in terms of, you know, remembering what this community is all about. You know, there's companies out there obviously, and we all need to make money and everything, but you know, the whole idea of that we are all in it together, and this isn't all about money. So it's a really good listen. And Brian Gardner kind of apologizes to Corey Miller for his part in Corey Miller's troubles, and Corey obviously pushes that away and everything. But it's a very emotional listen to two, you know,
Where's
sort
that?
of giants of the WordPress. Studio.fm or something like that.
It's a great podcast. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Have you heard that one, Nathan?
I confess I haven't heard that one, but I've definitely dipped in and out of their stuff in the past.
Yeah, listening to Brian Gardner apologizing and his voice is breaking up to Corey was it was brilliant. It was great. It was great content.
I suppose it's going to be difficult if he does stay in the WordPress space to kind of mimic that success, having had one smash hit for a very long period of time, you know, a decade or more. To be able to mimic that again, I suppose everything is going to be measured up against that. But yeah, we wish him well. Lots of people I know who use Genesis were absolute advocates, wouldn't touch anything. So obviously he did something very right. So that's quite nice. I think we'll move on if that's all right. Unless Ronald, I know you wanted to say something about that, so maybe I'll give you a chance.
No, it's all been said, so
okay.
I don't want to repeat.
Okay, all righty. In which case, we'll have a quick look over at this article. This is, I'm just going to touch on this ever so quickly. This is on WP Tavern again. It says, WordPress theme review team brings back review shindigs. Okay, apparently they used to do this a lot. The theme review team seems to be in the WordPress news, at least anyway, quite a lot at the moment because of the difficulty in getting rid of the backlog of people who've entered themes to the repository. And there seems to be no perfect solution. They've restructured the team. I think it was a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. So this is a new stroke old idea. They're going to begin these weekend shindigs, and they're going to take up place on the first Saturday of every month. And I think the idea is you kind of show up to this Slack channel and try to lend your support, and they're going to teach you how it is that you can go about finding problems in themes, how to review themes. And so if that strikes you as interesting, you don't have to have any experience. Part of the whole thing is they're going to teach you from the ground up. So maybe that's your thing. You could go and check that out. The other one that I was going to mention, though, was about PHP 7.4. How much more exciting could it get? We're going to be talking about PHP 7.4. And I'm so glad that Ronald has decided to take this one, because I don't know what I could possibly say about PHP 7.4.
I'm going to keep it really short. It's just those 5 bullet points of the number of users that still use the old, the 5.6 and onwards and upwards. So a quarter of WordPress installations still using the 5.6, even though that's sort of recommended not to use that anymore. That's the only thing I was going to add to this story.
Yeah, there's a lot there, isn't there? Look at that. 25% on 5.6.
The environmental improvement you can make by increasing or updating your PHP installation. By going to a higher PHP version, you actually do the planet a huge favor.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, lots less power used and a lot more speed gained as well. It's interesting. It goes from PHP 5.6 is 25%, which is the biggest share of all. And then the other one is 7.2, and 7.3 is lagging at about 10% roughly. So yeah, go and get it checked out. We actually did speak last week about Jack Lennox and his endeavours to make the whole WordPress ecosystem more environmentally friendly. So yeah, go check that out. Right, okay, this was one that I really did want to mention. However, I'm going to be very honest about this. This is an interview that Matt. Now, when I was recording this for the news, I had about 4 attempts at saying this guy's name, and I could never get it right. Matt Mullenweg did an interview with. Right, here we go. David Heinemeier.
Nailed it.
Really? Is that it? Right.
That's
well, that was the word I couldn't do. David Heinemeier Hansen, who is, I think, is he Salesforce? Is that his thing? No, Basecamp.
Basecamp.
He's Basecamp. Yeah.
37 Signals.
He is the Basecamp guy, and
Ruby on Rails.
Yeah. So my honest admission here is that lots of people said you should listen to this because they had quite a sort of back and forwards and I suppose adversarial exchange on Twitter. So I started listening to it thinking, yeah, this will be good for the news. And then I actually fell asleep whilst listening to it. So luckily, to the rescue, Mr. Lacey. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I did listen to it. Yeah, it was really good. I stayed awake for the whole thing.
That's all you needed to say.
John Wick's Part 3. I rented John Wick's Part 3 on Sky on the weekend, and I didn't even get to the end within the 48 hours. 3 sections, fell asleep 3 times, and then I had to Google on my phone the ending because it ran out.
What was it?
Anyway,
what was it?
What
was the thing?
John Wick. It's Keanu Reeves' martial arts film.
Okay, so it's the perfect cure for insomnia.
Yeah, but this was way more interesting, so I listened to this instead. No problem with this one. Yeah, it's definitely worth a listen. David, who I guess calls himself on Twitter DHH, is, so far as I know, like I said, the founder of 37 Signals, which created the software Basecamp and I think Highrise as well.
Yeah, they did a bunch of stuff.
And I think he's also the creator of Rails, as in Ruby on Rails, which is a framework that runs on Ruby. I think I've got that right.
Book Rework as well.
Yeah, Rework.
That's right. He's got the book Rework, which is a really nice, small, easy to read book about modern ways of working and how they did it at Basecamp with a completely distributed company. So he is an open source guy because he's created a very popular framework, which I think he mentions on the podcast that Shopify even uses it as well. So Shopify is built on Ruby on Rails. And his beef, so just to get started, I'll just read out the tweet that started it. So he says, and he quotes Matt Mullenweg first. Matt says, "We want every website, whether it's e-commerce or anything, to be powered by WordPress." So that's one small, obviously, soundbite of what Matt said. And then David follows up with, "Is a nasty monopolistic goal. Listening to Matt muse about 85% of market share dreams is a real downer, but 300 million is a down payment on monopoly dreams." So he's talking there about the $300 million that Salesforce invested in Automatic recently. And I think he's kind of saying in a way that Matt's claims about 85% market share were very influential in terms of getting that $300 million to Automatic. So anyway, so the discussion is really interesting. It's quite a friendly discussion, but the problem is the discussion started off so on fire on Twitter that the majority of the discussion is almost a calm down of just getting the points across in a kind of more polite and amicable way. So yeah, he's upset. So the discussion points are the 85%, the monopolies, and there's a lot of comparisons. There's lots of, well, if we look at this historic thing about this company or this historic thing, so there's a lot of kind of comparisons to other situations in real life. But like I say, I don't think the discussion goes far enough. And as far as I know, they're going to do it again. But it's very interesting because DHH, David, is from an open source background, and he has got an extremely popular product as well. And what I found quite funny was that he seems to want everybody in the open source to, for instance, instead of 85%, maybe there's 100 different organizations who've got 1% each. So he's quite happy to make enough money, and he says in the podcast as well, which is really funny, I sold my company shares and bought a Lamborghini and all this sort of stuff. So he's quite happy that you can make enough money from your open source to do that, but doesn't want it to go. So I'm not sure what the happy percent is that you're allowed to have before he's not happy about it. But I think that's the problem with the conversation, that it started off so on fire that it took the entire podcast to just get them to be agreeing on anything.
Right. Maybe that's why I fell asleep.
Happens really, and where it goes from here.
Yeah. Do we want 100% of the internet to be running on WordPress? That to me sounds like that sounds like a soundbite that was worthy of challenging, to be honest. I mean, I know we're all in it, right? We love WordPress. Do we? Yeah. I think if that happened, that's not healthy, I don't think. He said. Suddenly.
No, I think Matt also defends that point in a way. I mean, obviously, I saw in the Facebook group this was posted. I think Andrew and Jay both commented on this, and Matt does, as usual, do a very good job of just sitting back and listening and then giving a well thought out response. But there just isn't enough time to dig it out as much. But Matt does say that he never really said that 85% was a goal. He just said that it feels like that's where things are going. And so, and then he seems to think that that's not a bad thing, whereas DHH was very upset about that prospect, mainly not to do with money, but to do with power and where power sits on the internet.
Yeah. Matt's making the point that we can't have, Matt Davis in the comments says we can't have 100% of the internet on WordPress because we need some stuff to be bad for light relief. I can assure you, Matt, I've built plenty of bad stuff using WordPress, so it is entirely possible. Okay, anybody else want to talk about Matt asking for 100% of the web? If not, we will get Paul to talk about Kinsta instead.
Yeah, this is a quick one really. Kinsta have obviously upgraded their system. So there's some optimizations with the database that make it faster, which you can still do your normal optimizing if you're using a tool like WP Rocket or something to optimize your database. So that's some behind the scenes stuff that they're doing. Self-healing PHP, a new firewall, which they also say that doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing all your other security stuff as well, and giving people more disk space on all the different plans. So from what I see from that, it's just an upgrade to Kinsta's current package, which is very good news for any Kinsta customer, because from what I understand about Kinsta is it's already a fantastic product. Probably the most favoredly spoken about of the managed hosts within the particular price bracket. So anyone who's using Kinsta has got some kind of upgrade in there, but it seems to be more of a behind the scenes thing. So they've probably upgraded their whole system.
I should say, for what's it they say, responsible disclosure or something like that, I can't remember the words, but Kinsta are a sponsor of this podcast, but that's not why we put it in there. We put it in there because it was worthy. Whoa.
Does this mean that this conspiracy goes all the way to the top? This piece of news has been snuck in?
Yeah, there's absolutely there's no news here. There's just sponsorship. There's
integrity. This is unbelievable.
There's only advertising. I think everything Paul said is absolutely true, though. I don't know how innovative this stuff is, but the idea of like self-healing PHP, and the idea of this is they've got this little like system which is monitoring for things breaking down, like your database and the PHP, and then it'll try to restart itself and self-heal itself, and if it fails to do that, it will then notify their sysadmin team. So that, I think that's quite nice. I don't know how revolutionary that is, or if that's fairly typical. If you work for a hosting company at that kind of level, you could maybe tell us. But the other thing, they've also ramped up their paid plans. So the article for this one was called "More Disk Space for All Plans." And basically, if you're on the cheaper plan, the starter plan, they're doubling it from 5 to 10 gigs. The Pro plan goes from 10 to 20, and my understanding from what I've read was that they're just charging the same amount. So if you are a Kinsta user, what's wrong with that? Which is quite nice. I
imagine people would really like to have more page views as well. That seems to be a common complaint on managed hosts, that you have page views and how are they being counted and that sort of stuff. Do bots count as page views? All that sort of stuff. So yeah, I can see we can get more space, which is probably extremely welcome on the starter plan, because 5 gigs is very tricky to work with if you're starting to back up your site on the space as well.
Yep, that's quite a lot. Got some nice comments coming in about that. Obviously, you were saying, Paul, that it was, I think you tried to word it quite correctly, most favoured or something you said, and Matt and Chris both sort of saying that they really like Kinsta. They're obviously users of it, and Chris is saying I should get Brian Jackson on one week. Well, it's funny you should say that, Chris. I'm not going to say any more, but it was a good request. Right, let's get. Well, I'm either going to be asking Andre or I'm going to be asking Ronald, because the next piece that we're talking about is this Gutenberg tips thing. Now, this is quite quirky in that normally I link to a piece of text-based content. I don't even think I know what this is. First of all, can somebody tell me what is a Twitter moment? What is that?
No one? So it's kind of like a thread
right
inside Twitter. That's basically it.
Right.
And they collate them, but you can create your own moments. That's basically what it is.
So is it like a mini blog? You can just sort of put stuff in there, and can you get to choose that?
Yeah, So I was on one, I don't know, earlier in the year to do with sales training, and so they've created there's a Mike Killen sales training Twitter moment somewhere out there, and it's what is it, sequential, like it's in order in time.
Right.
I didn't run it, but I was answering these questions. So it's basically Twitter's equivalent of a thread. Okay, and
it is sort of organised. So it's basically it is truly like a little blog, just a proper actual microblog.
And each tweet is a paragraph or whatever. Yeah.
And can this moment suck in stuff from Mike Killen and Paul Lacey, or is it just Mike's stuff?
From what I understand, so this is from Editor's Kit, right?
Yep.
They have to create it.
Right.
I think they put it together with a hashtag, I believe.
Yeah.
I think that's about as complex as it gets.
Okay.
But
yeah. Well, thank you. That's much more. I am so lousy at Twitter, really bad. I mean, I was saying to Paul earlier, I don't even understand how to read replies and things. It's just a platform that I never really sunk my teeth into, preferring things like Facebook and email for some reason. But yeah, Jeffrey Carandang, who is the guy behind Editor's Kit, has released this moment, which we now know is like a sequential load of tweets. And I just think this is quite a nice, if that's what it is, if Mike's description is correct, which I'm sure it is, this is a great purpose for it. So he's just releasing, when he finds something worthy in Gutenberg and he figures, oh, look, that maybe people would like to know about that, he then posts a little animated GIF or video about how to do it. So it's like a little mini tutorial without the need to visit a website of things that you can do, tips and tricks in Gutenberg. I should probably put it on the screen and then you can actually see. there's no way you're going to remember this URL, but if you go to the show notes and click, it's that Moments one. Here we go. 11774665969219949057. The pithily titled Gutenberg tips.
Rolls off the tongue.
It just rolls off the tongue. But I think
I like how you can be how you can educate yourself on another skill, even if just little tips in your daily feed, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter. And I probably pick up quite a lot of tips on various subjects just by adding a time, liking or subscribing to something. And if I'm fed up, I unlike and unfollow. But bit by bit, you do take on quite a little more information. You feel you're engaging with a subject, whether it's WordPress or WooCommerce or Gutenberg. And I wonder how other people see it as well.
So if you can like the moment, and then it becomes as if you've liked a person, whatever Jeffrey puts into that moment comes into your Twitter feed as if it was a person.
To be honest, I don't know about moment.
Okay.
So moments, no.
Okay. Okay.
It's just in general how you sort of engage with snippets of tips and information into your social media feed.
Oh, look at that! As if by magic, Jeffrey Carandang is on the call, and he's written, "It's from me." So Jeffrey, please explain to us all in text form in the comments how on earth a moment works. But thank you for doing that. I just thought it was a nice thing that I spotted this week.
Hey, if you go to their website, Editor's Kit, it's got, so this is conspiracy theory time now. It's got a comment from Brian Jackson in there.
You see.
It's got a testimonial, and at the bottom it says, proudly hosted by Kinster. So, Mike, there's something going on.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is.
No one told me this was what we were letting ourselves in for.
E pluribus onum. Have you seen those little all-seeing eyes on the dollar bill? Look, and he's got literature produced by Kinster.
This is absolutely insane. Just on that note, actually, of the thing, this is what Gutenberg needs to be doing more of, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I would consider myself a power user. Andre, I know you've got a few thoughts on this, but like, I use Gutenberg every single day for blogging, and like Dan maybe was like, "Oh, Mike, do you know that you can do this for headings?" I was like, "No, I've probably done 20,000 headings in the last year, and I didn't know that you could do like ##." But there's no shortcuts. But they say, "Oh, there's our shortcuts. You can go here." But there's no They need to be doing stuff like this, like all the time. That's how they're going to get more people using it.
I actually figured out for the first time about 2 weeks ago that if you highlight a piece of text and right-click, if you do Command-V on the Mac, it'll paste the link in and do all of that bit for you. I was going to the link button and pasting the link in there. I didn't realise it did that sort of stuff. So, yeah, come on, Jeffrey. Let's have more of these, please. You're doing very well.
Andre, you've got a few things on.
Yeah, Mike's exactly right. Like, I've been doing back-end Gutenberg stuff since the beginning, like hacked it apart, create custom blocks, and I knew probably one thing on the list, and it's some of this stuff is incredible, and I don't know why it's not more front and center. So I totally agree.
So what was that one? You do hashtag, and it immediately becomes a heading, like an H2.
Yeah, so it's like markdown. I don't know.
Yeah, it does markdown.
So if you did 3 hashtags, it'd be H3.
Correct. Yeah, and if you do /, that will open up the menu. You can use shortcuts. There are shortcuts. But the thing I miss most of all from the old editor is pressing, was it Control-Alt-2 or Control-Alt-3, and that would change the headings and stuff. And at the moment, Gutenberg doesn't do that, and it drives me absolutely bananas.
Got it.
But yeah, stuff like this, these little like power tips, like copy and paste stuff. I do that all the time, and it will upload the image. If you paste an image into the block, it'll actually upload that.
Yeah. Loads of good stuff.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
Like, but why didn't I, as someone who is one of the few people that enjoys using Gutenberg and uses it every day, I don't know about it, so I can't imagine how millions of other people know about it.
I confess I've now dropped the classic editor. I'm like you, Mike. I've gone all in on the new block editor. It does everything that I need now, and I'm more than happy with it, to be honest. I wonder what would happen if we typed in /Kinster. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you'd just get a post full of amazing Kinster. I tell you what, they are getting value out of this episode, if nothing else. Right, let's move on that
I like this
bombshell.
as content marketing, though. What Jeffrey's done is great content marketing because he's got a product which looks really good.
Yeah.
Editor's kit, some good people saying, some people I respect saying some good things about it, and he's just creating useful content just around the platform that product sits on, which is great.
Matt Davis says, I never thought I'd use oh, for goodness sake, it's literally taking over my mind. I never thought I'd use Gutenberg, but I'm enjoying it immensely. That is my opinion as well. I didn't see that it would happen quite so elegantly for me, but I really like it. But I'm just text and pictures. So from that point of view, it's an absolute piece of cake. Right, let's crack on with the next one. I think it's me talking about this one very quickly. WPMU Dev, they've got their Hummingbird plugin. It's reached version 2.1, and they've added a few interesting little features. The first one is that uptime notification. So, I don't know in what way they handle this, but they handle uptime notifications. Previously, you could only nominate one person to receive those emails. So, your site is down, go check it out. Now, they will notify as many people as you want. You can put a laundry list of people that you want to know if your site's gone down, which I actually think is a really good idea. They also serve compressed versions of cache files. So, for example, if your server doesn't support gzip compression, they will handle all that on their end. And there was one other thing. What was it? Oh, yeah, you can skip compression on mobile sites. I wasn't quite sure why you would want to do that. But the other one is that the cache will now generate itself automatically. So in the past, you had to some bot had to visit the page before it would generate the cache. Now I don't know how it does that, but it handles all that all by itself. So that's quite nice. So that's my stuff about that. There was a BodyPress article.
Oh, one thing, Nathan.
Oh, carry on, please.
In this article about Hummingbird, it says new integrations, and in the integrations it's listed SiteGround and WP Engine as some hosts that it now integrates with. So if you've ever used SiteGround or WP Engine, then you know that generally the only caching plugin you were ever allowed to use was WP Rocket, but it looks like now you can use Hummingbird. So it looks like they've worked with the WP Engine team and the SiteGround team. So are we going to see it? Are we going to see WPMU getting bought out by WP Engine in the next year? Who knows?
I predicted WPMU being bought out by someone like GoDaddy or a big hosting company years ago, and everyone thought I was absolutely mental for suggesting it. I was like, you literally can see that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's some conspiracy.
You can see the direction, maybe.
Don't they have hosting now too?
Yeah, they've got hosting.
They do.
I think that basically they've just got rid of the 4,500 plugins that they once had, and stripped it down to I'm going to say 9, something like that. And hosting was a component that they added in. It's been, if you had an account, you've been able to use it for about the last 6 months, and the guys, they put an episode of their Hello WP podcast out specifically about their new hosting, and in all honesty, I think it looks pretty rock solid. They tasked
it out just for messing around.
Yeah, they tasked the guy with who had the job of building their hosting platform. They basically said, go away and build the absolute dream platform that you would want, and then come back and tell us about it, and we'll see what we can do. And allegedly, I think it's DigitalOcean. I think they use DigitalOcean, pretty sure.
Yeah, it is DigitalOcean, because they're quite transparent about that in the podcast, aren't they? That they've worked closely. Yep. Ronald, do you use Hummingbird?
Occasionally, but I've had some issues with it where I had to turn it off. But at times it has helped me. Mm-hmm. With the site down alert, you can actually now set it to a couple of minutes as well, rather than if it's down for 1 second. I'm not sure if that's the norm, but I've noticed that. I thought that's quite useful. That
you can manually say how long before it starts to notify you.
Yeah, so for example, 5 minutes, because you all know that you know, half a second, and you get bombarded with emails, and if you then send an email to the site owner, he'll be on the phone, or she'll be on the phone straight away. They go, "Oh, my site is down." No, it's not. So setting a time limit of 5 minutes is quite useful. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You've got so much a wealth of information, you guys. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. Okay, BodyPress. I'm really, unless anybody really wants to talk about this, I'm just going to say that 5.0 is coming around the corner. I'm not a big user of it, so I feel a bit fraudulent talking about what it can do and what have you. But there you go. You've got blocks coming to BodyPress, so you can there's an API that you can hook into to create these things. My understanding is that at the moment they haven't really created any of them. That's going to be on your head if you want to do that. So all right, in which case let's crack on. We're going to talk about Automatic, and Ronald, I believe you want to take this one. Automatic, well, let me just open it up on the screen for everybody to see. It's probably a WP Tavern article. Automatic has discontinued active development on Confess, a plugin I'd not really heard of called Edit Flow, but there's some interesting consequences of this, I think. So go for it, Ronald.
Yeah, so this I've not used the plugin myself either, but I think it's just an interesting point whereby Automatic has taken up a lot of the development of many plugins, and at what point do they decide to discontinue support or and in this case, there was hardly any announcement because a user was then sort of, asked the Automatic support why there's no more update, and that was the last one was 9 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a bit of a sad story in a way that some plugins which are obviously used by many hundreds and maybe thousands of people then suddenly get dropped, and these users then have to find an alternative, or something else will happen. And it's more of a sort of a question or reflection to ourselves, as especially if you have own a lot of plugins. What do you do with it, and how do you support legacy users, and how could you communicate that? And I think it's something we should all be aware of.
At the bottom of the article, they actually suggest an alternative, like a commercial alternative. It's funny that we were talking about this exact same plugin a couple of weeks ago. It's called WordPress. It's mentioned here, right. I don't know, a quarter of the way down the article or something like that. And I can't remember in what context it was. I think it was WP Engine had open sourced some project of theirs where you could specify what needed to be achieved before a post would be publishable. So, like, you'd create a random list of post to Twitter, make sure you've done the SEO, blah blah blah. Then the publish button becomes available once you've ticked all the boxes. So there are some rivals out there. WordPress. Obviously, if you're working in teams, this seems quite useful. But yeah, I agree. It seems odd, doesn't it? No development for 9 months. Although somewhere buried in here, wasn't there like a slight little maintenance tweak that happened a few months ago? So somebody was still looking at it. But it does seem a shame taking that over and then killing it. But I suppose, they can't keep everything going forever, can they? So,
hey, Andre, what about Project Content Huddle? What do you think?
Say it again.
Project Content Huddle.
Oh, maybe. That's
content workflow in WordPress.
that's sort of like the really cool part about all this open source. Someone could just take it over if they wanted.
Yeah, that's true. I think
the WPM UDEF is exactly what they did with those. How many 4,000 plugins you said, Nathan?
4.5.
4.5. Sorry.
Content Huddle would be awesome. Oh, Andre, look, a dream is born.
Just need more time.
Everybody, quickly go out and register the domain contenthuddle.com before Andre can do it. Right, okay. The next one is all about a plugin called Smart Slider. Very quickly, Smart Slider have released a new. I don't know if you got a chance to see this. What more can I say apart from all there is to say is just go and look at it. I just quite like the look of it. They sent me an email to say, look, we've updated, we've got this new capability, and it looks like this. And I did. I went and had a look at it, and I thought, actually, that's quite nice. It's just dead simple. If you had some kind of content that would fit into these sections, they're calling it portfolio categories. I'm not even sure how you create these, but I did like the look of it. I just thought it looked quite beautiful, so that's why it's been included. But I doubt anybody's going to want to talk about that, frankly. So, no. All right. In which case, let's talk about the deals from this week. I know that I never quite managed to fulfill the promise of this because there's so many deals going on each week. But has anybody used this one? It's called, how do you even say this? It's called Piatanet. That I don't know if that's like somebody's surname.
Piatanet. Yeah,
How do you say it?
I think it's Piatanet, but
Piatanet.
it's only based on my Piotr reference of a first name.
Okay.
First name.
Well, Piatanet for Elementor. Now, I bet this is no longer true, which would be absolutely hysterical if it wasn't true anymore. They've got a deal on at the moment whereby they've got this suite. It's a bit like Ultimate Add-ons for Elementor or Ultimate Add-ons for Beaver Builder or Power Pack or whatever. They've got this suite of different things that you can add into Elementor. For some reason, I can't get the page to load at the moment. I don't know if anybody else can.
I don't think they've got a thing with the upgrade. I'll be honest, I was kind of going through it and I was like, I don't know. It's a really bizarre sales page.
Okay.
To be honest.
It's a one-pager, isn't it? And you just whisk through it to all the different options and elements. But it is, I've never heard of them.
Do you know the reason I actually
looks
mentioned
nice.
this? The reason I mentioned it is because a couple of people who I know had actually downloaded it and they were really bullish about the changelog. They'd said it had been updated often recently and they were very happy with it. I think normally I would have just looked at this and thought, who knows? Because it doesn't actually show much in terms of demos unless you sort of click further into the website. Anyway, there you go. If you use the article, you can pick up this for lifetime, $70. So there you go. There's the first one. And the other one is an AppSumo deal, which is something called Yay Images. Not used it, but obviously everybody needs sort of stock images. I used their search because they were claiming on the AppSumo site that the search was pretty good. And I tried it. I typed in things like red car, dog. And it was pretty good. It showed me pictures of red cars with dogs in them, which I thought was quite good. Whereas normally when I type things into search engines on those sites, you don't find pictures.
That's 50% of the images that you'd ever need, isn't it?
Almost all.
Dogs and red
I mean,
cars.
come on. Think outside the box. There's very few chances that you're going to need anything. I mean, maybe a green dog, but, you know.
Yeah.
Green dog, blue car images.
Alright.
Speaking of dogs, Paul Lacey got himself a dog this week.
Yeah,
Did you?
a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
What'd you get?
Nathan virtually met Ellie earlier. Little cavapoo. It's like this big.
She met me and then went away and did a dump on the carpet.
No, that was a photo from yesterday.
Oh, it sounds great. Oh, I'm so pleased.
Nathan was thinking about getting a dog too, and so I sent him some cute pictures and then a picture of the dump on the carpet.
Have to say, nobody's ever sent me a picture. Oh,
Yeah, I wasn't sure when I sent it. I thought, you'll laugh at this.
I did. I actually did laugh.
Anyone who doesn't know what a
Because,
dump is,
we
it's a
should put
poop.
this into some context. Paul was trying to persuade me to get a dog, so he sent me these lovely, beautiful pictures of like him stroking his dog, and then there was the downside picture, which was that. Anyway, we're really straying off the topic this week, aren't we? Let's get back to it. WP builds. What have we got? So security, 3 things. I do not get into this anymore because I just think the weeds are too thick. So I'll just open them up and you can have a quick look. The first one is theme editor plugin. So if you've come across the theme editor plugin, the WebArcs guys have found a problem with it. My computer's really bugging out today. Oh, and look, they've got a discount by the looks of it. So go and check out this if you use the theme editor plugin. This is a nice page. iThemes do this twice a month, and the reason I like this is because you can just scroll through it and see the icons. And if you've ever been to the WordPress repo, you'll recognize them straight away. Oh, I've got that one, or so on. So go and check. That's their list, and something on the Securi blog, a new wave of buggy WordPress infections. And again, it gets really into. I mean, look, if you can see the image that I'm showing to you, how nerdy can it be? It's just a series of random digits. That's how into the weeds that one gets. So let's talk about
just looking ahead into the future.
Yeah.
Right. If you combine, the 85% potential, use base of WordPress, combined with the ever-growing security issues that we have, and then 25% of people still using PHP 5.6, it feels like we could have a problematic future.
Yeah.
Good time to be in WordPress security, though, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point. Right, WP builds. What did we do this week? We had speaking of, platforms, hosting and whatnot, we had a chat with a guy called Brad Tuzenard from SpinUp WP. I don't know if anybody's used this, but the comments that I got a few comments sent to me personally. People were really, really happy with it. They'd used it and they tried various things out, and they seemed to say, very favourable things about it. This is the podcast episode. There's links to it's from the guys behind Delicious Brains, who do things like Offload. I can't remember what it's called. Offload WP Media or something like that, and Offload SES and Migrate DB Pro. Oh yeah, there we go. Lots of people use those before. And essentially, you click a button and spin up a totally bespoke WordPress instance, and it all happens very, very quickly and very easily. I don't know if any of you guys have tried that, but when I'd finished talking to him, I was very impressed by what it was offering, but I've not tried it myself.
It's similar to something like Server Pilot or RunCloud, but it's very specific to WordPress, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you want to be able to spin up a server and you don't need all the non-WordPressy type things, then it might be a good option. I mean, the direction I think that people tend to, the big growth area is these control panels with, putting your own servers on there, because there's no gotcha with these things. So by that I mean, with some hosting companies, there is often what you'd call a gotcha, where you come in at a low price and then the price goes up after 3 years, or there's a kind of almost a forced upgrade path, those sort of things. Or if you get too busy, suddenly the overages cost quite a lot of money. With these hosting panels like SpinUp and RunCloud and Server Pilot, you are paying for the panel and then you're paying for exactly what you need on the server. So there's no nasty surprises as long as you feel comfortable doing it. So SpinUp WP is a good option for people. It's just just probably want to just look at the different pricing models and see what works for different people depending on how many sites or how many servers you seem to need. And all of the different options, Server Pilot, RunCloud, SpinUp, they've all got a slightly different way of pricing things. So it's really just a case of trying out these things and seeing which one fits for you and if it is the right thing for you. Otherwise, you've got the other options like things like Cloudways, which is somewhere in the middle between that hosting company. What's that hosting company again?
No, there's a hosting company.
Kinsta. Kinsta, wasn't it?
Contra, something like that.
Yeah, Contra.
Man alive, I'm going to have to get in touch with Brian and say, there's quite a lot of chatter about your company this week.
Yeah, we mentioned you loads of times this week.
Oh, and look at that. Now, Chris says, Kinsta ad on screen. What I didn't realise was that on the screen was my website, and on my website, of course, is an ad for Kinsta. There you go. Right, what else did we do? Very quickly, we did something with Peacher this week. We do this monthly thing where we chat about UI and UX, and we did that. So click on the link about that. I haven't got any jobs. I've got no jobs for you. Please, somebody send me a job, and then I'll try and tell people about it. If anybody's got a job, let me know, and I will try to make that a bit of a feature in this news bulletin. But that's kind of all the WordPress stuff. Should we go into any of the non-WordPressy stuff? Did any of that interest you? There was one thing that really took my interest. I don't know how this is going to be policed, but apparently over on it was Bloomberg.com. I don't know. How do you police this? I have no idea. And first of all, let me get rid of this giant cookie warning that's come up. Yeah, whatever. There we go. Submit preferences. Look how cavalier I am with the way that I deal with cookies. Just get rid of them.
GDPR was the best thing to happen to marketers.
Yeah.
Everyone just clicks accept. Yeah,
just
whatever.
Straight away. And for
I'm well happy with it.
Some reason, I've now got this great big white space. Oh no, it's now full of a massive ad. So here we go. Allegedly, the UK government have passed some legislation. So social media platforms based in the US, including Facebook and WhatsApp, will be forced to share users' encrypted messages with British police under a new treaty between the two countries. Now, first thing that it strikes me is, okay, right, it's encrypted. So, all right, what do you do with that? You've got a blob of absolutely pseudo-random junk that you hopefully can't read if it's been done anyway. But it just seems a little bit odd. Are we the only country doing this, insisting that these platforms hand this stuff over? I don't know where I sit on this, because I hear these sensible arguments coming from politicians where they say, it would be nice if we could have some insight so that these atrocities don't happen. And I'm going, yeah, that all makes perfect sense. And then I hear the privacy advocate saying, but I want private communication. That's one of the benefits of the internet. And I go, yeah, that makes sense as well. I don't know.
The trick is to be a politician, so that whenever your filthy stuff does come out in public, it doesn't really make a massive difference.
That's
That they don't care because their stuff is in the paper. That's the goal.
But surely if it's encrypted, it's
It's not encrypted. If someone can see it, it's not encrypted.
No, but it is
That's
encrypted. They use certainly WhatsApp uses the Signal protocol. I understand, which is
yeah. But when you say I want to share messages with someone so that anyone can read it, that's not encrypted, is it? If someone else can read it, call it what you want. It's not encrypted if someone can read it.
They have these capabilities.
Right?
I confess I never use these platforms' capabilities, but it is possible, isn't it, to open up lines of communication on things like WhatsApp, and from the outset you say everything from this point forwards will be encrypted, and so it's kind of point-to-point encryption, and that all works. But you're right. If you're just sticking stuff in Facebook or in a WhatsApp group or whatever, that isn't. But I don't know where I stand on this. It seems like a shame. It seems like we got to a point where this was possible, and that was all good, and now it seems like we're walking that back a bit.
So I think Facebook have probably done over the British government here, and the government has said, hey, we want to be able to share that data. We're going to force you to do that. And then Facebook are like, would you like that encrypted? And they'll say, what does that mean? Oh, it's all secure. Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Sure, you can have it.
Yeah.
And they just give them, like you said, a completely unreadable dump of data.
Pseudo-random noise.
Just so the government can, so our British government can, again, do what it wants whenever it feels.
Yeah, it seems to be against the sort of the groundswell seems to be privacy. The government seem to be, we want an insight into this. But the point that I've heard many, many times is so let's say that this requires, well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's literally we're going to write to Facebook and demand that they hand the stuff over. But my fear is that at some point they're going to say to these tech companies like Apple and Google, look, we actually need you to build a backdoor into the platform. And and the point that's always made is if it's a backdoor for one, it's a backdoor for everyone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how clever you think your tech is. There is some genius sitting over a computer right now, just moments away from figuring it out.
Some 7-year-old in Korea.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How do they do that?
Next time Facebook gets hacked, it will be the British government's fault.
Yeah. I mean, serious point though. So there's 5 people here who use the internet rather a lot. Do you send anything encrypted? Do you use like PGP email, or do you actually take notice? Like I've got things set up on my phone which I could, if I wanted to, ensure complete bulletproof security as it stands at the minute. Like I've got Signal on my phone. I don't use any of it. I'll just send everything in Gmail or Facebook Messenger.
I think I've got quite a lot of stuff on my phones and laptops and all this stuff that my tech guys have set up. The problem though is by kind of the safest way to use a computer is to not use the computer. you have to make the assumption that how secure you are is public. You have to make that assumption.
Yeah.
And people get up in arms when they say, "Oh my God, it was all." It's like, yeah, but one, no one forced you to put it out there, and two, that's the nature of what you're working with. If you don't want people to know the weird stuff you're into, don't share it at all. I remember seeing. I just assume that it's always public anyway.
Sorry, I want.
Maybe I have like a tinfoil hat, but we're all assuming that WhatsApp was encrypted to begin with, just because they said it was.
Yeah.
Do we know?
Oh, I mean, we've never been told anything slightly dubious by the guys over at Facebook, have we? They're always saying it as it is. There's nothing dodgy about any of the stuff that they've promised and told us afterwards wasn't true. I once watched a show. It was like a documentary with Edward Snowden in it, and this is the lengths he was going to. What was the name of the journalist who was with him? Anyway, when Edward Snowden, so this was in his hotel in Russia. When those guys communicated, this is literally what they did. They would buy a brand new pack of paper, 2 new pens. They would go into his hotel room. They would sit under a towel with a torch, with a glass table, and every time they wanted to say anything, they would write it and then immediately burn that piece of paper.
Again, whatever people get up to in the privacy of their own hotel rooms, That's it's completely up to them.
I think in his case, though, it
what they
was
said they were
actually
doing,
his
yeah.
life at stake, wasn't it? So I think being careful is probably quite a good thing. Right, a couple of more things. Spotify, you can add podcasts to your playlist. I think that's quite cool. Go search for WP Build. So you can put them into playlists as if they're songs. So you could have an episode in your playlist, which is quite nice. And Google is going to put loads of privacy features in things like maps. So you can do incognito maps. And that's all I've got.
Incognito
Maps.
from Google knowing?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
So at the minute, if you use Google Maps, if you haven't configured it correctly and you don't regularly log in and expunge that data, it will keep a little timeline, and you can find it by going to your timeline. And it's amazing, actually, what it's got on me, because I was willing to give it all over. But you can now manually expunge it. You can say, do it every 6 months, do it every 18 months, whatever. Or you can just go incognito. So the searches that you perform and the navigation that you use will be destroyed when you close it. Quite nice.
Does it say what motivation is for this stuff that they're doing, or is it just a...
I think it's probably Kinsta that have caused this to...
yeah.
Do
To do
you
with
guys know
that,
about
isn't it?
Kinsta as well?
No, I don't know. I think I don't know. I think there's probably enough people that, what do they call it? The tyranny of the default. It's a nice feature. They can tout it as being safe, but nobody's going to use it. So they'll still have all the data they want. But now, thanks to the WP Builds Weekly WordPress News, you guys know about it. So you can go and switch it on. Are we done?
Well, I did hear that Apple said that the only reason they have Apple Maps, is that what it's called, Apple Maps?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have an iPhone, but I heard that the only reason that they keep that app in development for their Apple users was purely so that their Apple users don't have to use Google Maps.
Right.
Because Google Maps was tracking exactly where you are at all times.
Yeah.
So that's the main, because obviously Apple is... Google Assistant's talking to me because I said something. So it's listening now. It's listening now.
That's hysterical.
Like,
so
Paul,
as if to really drill the point home, your Google Assistant on your phone just suddenly spoke up and started talking to you.
Yeah.
Chris.
What you saying, Paul?
Chris makes the point that he really likes the map logging. I actually do as well. I turned it on about 2 years ago, and I've allowed it to map every day of my life since then. And actually, I've quite enjoyed at various times kind of looking back and seeing where I've been. I know that sounds a bit pathetic. You're all nodding. Yeah, very good. Yeah, it sounds a bit pathetic. Yeah, it is. It is sad. But, I live in Scarborough. There's nothing else to do. So, there we go. Right.
Don't worry, I do exactly the same.
Yeah, you see, and he doesn't even live in Scarborough. Right. That's it. That's all we got. Thank you, Paul, Lacey. We have this bit at the end. If you want, you can just say whatever you're doing, whatever you want to do, whatever book reading you're reading, where you're going to walk your dog, whatever. Go for it, Paul.
I've got nothing.
What a relief. Right, Mike.
Nothing.
I'm good. I'm cracking on with work. That's about it.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Okay, fair enough. Ronald?
Oh, I'm reading How to Speed Up Your WordPress site by Kinsta.
Huh. I keep hearing that word coming up. I've got to check these guys out. This is brilliant.
They sound like a really credible hosting company, don't they? Yeah. And what about you, Andre? Anything happening this week?
Nothing. I skipped breakfast today, so I'm going to go eat.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. I say it every week. I really do appreciate it.
It's my fault completely. So
Yeah. I'm going to say I'm not taking the blame for your breakfast. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Maybe we'll see you again next time. And thanks for joining us on the WP Builds Weekly WordPress newsletter.